So, welcome back to another episode. Today we cover the Linde, or in English I think it's called basswood or something. Let me just check. Linde should be called basswood or something. Or linewood. And yeah, let's just start, I guess. As always, I'm gonna translate the words. I'm gonna translate the word in the English sentence structure, the words, I think. And we're gonna translate the entire sentence, and yeah, let's just start. So, first off, I think the Linde in German, or the basswood, I think, or maybe the basswood is more in terms of the wood. Anyways, der Lindenbaum, maybe. Der Lindenbaum. So the linden tree is, I think, most famous or known, or rather used. It's also going to talk about that a bit in the article, for its carving, you could say, abilities, or carving use, or use in the carvers, you could say, not industry, like for carvers. Anyways, and it's a pretty soft wood, I think. The tree is, I think, growing mostly in Europe, if I remember correctly, or like more, like, what's it called? Like middle, not too warm, not too cold areas, I think. Like, yeah. And I think let's just dive right into the article. So, here we have this subheading. Die Linde mit ihren herzförmigen Blättern findet man heute vorwiegend in Parks und oder Alleen. So, die Linde, the linden tree, with, ihren, her, in this case because it's die Linde, it's feminine, ihren, her, or its in English, herzförmigen. This derives from the word Herz, which means heart. Förmig, this derives from the word form, which is the same in English. So, form or shape. Förmig means formed, basically, or being in some sort of a form or shape. So, herzförmigen, plural, and is, I think, the most common plural form in German. So, for example, I don't know, is it? Like I actually can't recall anything, as always. For example, die Substanzen, I don't know. Here you see this N, or thing is, I can only remember like plural, like, I don't know, die Bäume, where it's with But I think there are multiple plural forms in German, so I think N, if I remember, is the most common, but funnily enough, I can't remember anything. But here you can see, for example, Arten is also a plural form, or Formen, or Regionen. But for example, when we have this word Land here, which in the plural form is Länder, so you can see there are multiple plural forms, but I think N is the most common one. So, herzförmigen, so plural, hard formed or heart shaped. Blättern, also plural, because it's, of course, the adjective relates to the plural of the word leaf, which is the singular form of Blättern. So Blatt is the singular, which means leaf. Can also mean sheet, but rather in terms of paper. So Blättern, which means leaves. Findet, finds. Man, one, basically. It's the kind of a special form in German because you say Mann for talking about basically everyone, or talking about the general population, or like the average human being, you could say. Findet man, so one finds, basically. Heute, nowadays, or today rather. In general means today, but this in this context means nowadays. Vorwiegend, this is kind of a very, how to say this, very visual word, you could say, but it's more a word that probably evolved over time because it derives from the word vegan. Vegan, which means to weigh, because this also relates to the word Waage, which is scale. It's also a astrological sign, I think. I don't know what it's called in English, but it's basically, it's a scale. And vegan, vorwiegend, so that this basically means, if it were to be translated word by word in its literal meaning, you could say mostly weighing or before weighing, because vor means either before, in this case, or mostly it means before, but in this case it means mostly, basically. Or this is the translation of the entire word. So you would say finds one nowadays mostly, but word by word this would mean before weighing. So yeah, I think it's kind of very a metaphoric word, you could say. In is the same in English, parks also the same in English, oder or Alleen, I think it's called also kind of the same. Alleen, avenues, yeah, kind of similar but not the same word. So, die Linde, the linden tree mit ihren herzförmigen Blättern findet man heute vorwiegend in Parks oder Alleen. The linden tree with her heart-shaped leaves finds one nowadays mostly weighing, or in this case mostly, in parks or avenues. So the Linde with her heart-shaped leaves is nowadays mostly found in parks or avenues. And another detail which I just kind of demonstrated is that findet man is basically also a kind of way of saying or expressing the passive. So basically in English, as I just did, is being found. You could also translate that into that. So, die Linde. Let's get into the main article. Die Linde. In Deutschland sind 2 Lindenarten heimisch, die Winterlinde und die Sommerlinde. Die beiden können sich aber auf natürliche Weise kreuzen, sodass Mischformen beider Arten existieren. Beide Lindenarten kommen heute in den meisten Regionen Deutschlands vor. Linden vertragen relativ viel Schatten, jedoch weniger als die Rotbuche. Heute sind sie im Wald vielerorts rar geworden. Sie finden sich dafür aber umso häufiger in Parks oder Alleen. Das Holz der Linde ist vor allem bei Kunsthandwerkern gefragt, da es sich exzellent zum Schnitzen und Drechseln eignet. Es ist weich, lässt sich gut bearbeiten und färben. Auch wenn diese Nutzungsmöglichkeiten mittlerweile eher Nischenbereiche sind, ist der Bedarf durchaus vorhanden. Auch der Linde wird hinsichtlich der Anpassung an den Klimawandel eine bedeutende Rolle eingeräumt. Sie sollte in keinem Wald fehlen und stets untergemischt werden. Die Lindenblüten sind nicht nur Bestandteil von Erkältungstees, sondern auch eine wichtige Nektarquelle für Bienen und somit auch für die Basis für Lindenblütenhonig. So, that was reading through the entire article in German. And we're going to translate. In Deutschland, in Germany, sind zwei Lindenarten, linden tree, Arten, species, plural, heimisch. This derives from the word heim, which means home, or is a more like an older version of saying home or house. In German you would normally say Haus, but Heim is also southern Germany kind of, how do you say that, influenced, or nowadays people from southern Germany like Bavaria would say Heim instead of Haus. Ich gehe heim, they would for example say, instead of a like more northern German, or people who speak in more standard German, they would say ich gehe nach Haus or nach Hause. So ich gehe heim and ich gehe nach Hause. So, and so but heim is kind of an older version of saying house, and it also more relates to the kind of feeling of being home, because heim is more home, like the feeling, and a house is more just the house in general, the building basically. So heimisch, and here we also have this more feeling, because heimisch basically means being home to, or being, what was it called, originally from there. I think there was another word. Local, home, native, native. In terms of especially like plants or anything alive, it relates to native, basically, or it translates to native. So, in Germany are 2 London tree species home, you could say, or native. Die Winterlinde, the winter linden tree, and the feminine form, Sommerlinde, summer linden tree. So, in Germany are 2 linden tree species home, the winter linden tree and the summer linden tree. So, basically, in general translated, or in the context translated, this would mean in Germany 2 linden tree species are native, or 2 linden tree species are native to Germany. The winter linden tree, I guess, or something like that. Small leaved lime, interesting. And the summer linden, or summer linden tree. Die beiden können sich aber auf natürliche Weise kreuzen, sodass Mischformen beider Arten existieren. Die beiden, the, both, basically it means the both of them. This is more kind of a, in English it's more of a saying, in German it's a normal word, but because in English you wouldn't necessarily say you would say the both of them, but there's kind of more of a saying, and, or phrase. But in German it's a single word, so die beiden, beide, is also, or rather derives from that word, beide. This means 2, both of them. For example, beide, if you kind of talk about kids, beide, and you see 2 kids playing in the sand or something, sind am Spielen. Both are playing. Yeah, in English you could also say both are playing, but the both of them, both, kind of makes no difference. So, die beiden, in this case with the, of course it's more the both of them, I guess, because of the article, I think. Or the 2, yeah, you could also say the 2. Die beiden können, can, sich, or yeah, they can, sich, themselves, aber, but, auf, on, or at, but rather on, natürliche, natural, this derives from the word Natur, which means nature. Weise, which means the way. We also had that in previous episodes where I kind of went more in detail about it, but this just means the way. Kreuzen, this of course derives from the word Kreuz, here with a capital K, which means cross. And kreuzen means basically also cross in English. The noun can very often be the verb also, so kreuzen in German is different from kreuz, and in English it goes cross and cross. So, Weise kreuzen, so unnatural way, cross, so that, das means that, or not that. That, so that. But the different das from the, there are 2 different forms. There are this and there's this, but I think I also have a video on that where I kind of explained it a bit more. If you want to get deeper on that and understand it more, you can of course always check out some material on that, Google it, but I'm not going to go deeper on that right now. So that, Mischformen, this derives from the word mischen, which should mean to mix, or to blend, mingle, merge, shuffle, mix up. Formen, we also have that here, where we, herzförmig, so it also derives from the word form, so mixed forms you could say, or mixed species rather. Formen, also this plural. Beider, of both. I think this is kind of special in German, beider Arten. In English or in a lot of languages, I think it's in French, it's in Spanish, it's in probably Italian, all these languages that don't have a genitive without the of form. So in Spanish it's de, in French it's de, in German it could also be different with von, but in this case it's that way. But what I'm just trying to say is that German has this kind of special form where you don't need to put an of before the word to say of both species, or of the two species. And you can just say bei der. So this basically means of both. This is of course special because of this genitive form, von beiden, you would say in the accusative form, Mischformen von beiden Arten. So instead of that, you would say von beiden Arten, of both types. But in this case, with that, you would say of both. You would also say that in English, but you would say bei der, or yeah. So this is kind of a special, I would say special construction, if I'm not completely mistaken and I kind of missed something, but I think most other languages, I think in Europe or in general, you always have this of in some form, but in German this is very kind of unique. I don't know, maybe in northern, like more Scandinavian languages it exists, but in German I think it's pretty, unique, as I said. So, Arten, species, existieren, exist. So, die beiden, they both, können, can, sich, themselves, or in German, sich is always the same, I think, if it relates to something. Like, in English you would also have to kind of gender, so they, themselves, it, itself. In German it's sie, sich, selbst, es, ich, es, sich selbst. I think the only cases where it's not that way is ich, mir selbst, du, dir selbst, sie, sich selbst, wir, uns selbst. So there are kind of other cases, but in general, sich is very, is more used than, or is a word that is multiple times used in the kind of, you could say gendering or conjugation or whatever you want to call it. In contrary to English, where you have to use a different word, I think, for every kind of form. I, myself, you, yourself, he, himself, with the him, her, my, these kind of preposition or prefixes, whatever. So, Sie können sich, so die beiden können sich, they both can themselves, but on natural way cross so that mixed forms of both species exist. So they both can also, aber this is kind of saying in contrary to what was said before. So but they both can cross on natural ways, or you could say though, or you could say, but then you will have to put this before the sentence if you were to translate that into English. So they, how do I say that in this sentence structure? They both can, I don't know. I'm just gonna say that, but they both can cross on natural ways, or in a natural way, so that mixed forms of both species exist. So, beide Lindenarten kommen heute in den meisten Regionen Deutschlands vor. Beide, both, Lindenarten, linden tree species, come, heute, today, or rather nowadays in this case, in, den, die, meisten, most, Regionen, regions, Deutschlands, of Germany, vor. So this for relates to kommen, vorkommen, which would literally mean before, kommen, so before coming, but it just means to happen, occur, show up, and not show up maybe, but rather occur. So both linden tree species come nowadays in the most regions of Germany up or for. up or before rather, so they come up in the most, or occur in the most, in most regions of Germany, both linden tree species. Linden vertragen relativ viel Schatten, jedoch weniger als die Rotbuche. Linden trees, vertragen, we also had that in, I think, 2 or so previous videos, which just means to tolerate. If you want to know more about that, watch some of my previous videos. I think it was in the last or the one before the last. I also went into that, but yeah, you would have to search for that. Unfortunately, I don't know, like, in my mind, I don't exactly know where I said that, but you can also watch this entire series, and yeah. So, vertragen, tolerate, relatively, viel, a lot or much, Schatten, shadow. I think we also had that for a second. Wait, I'm just gonna look. So, vertragen relativ viel Schatten. Hey, actually, we have that exact phrase or phrasing here. I think we also had that somewhere else. Schatten, yeah. Dann im Schatten. And here, no, yeah. So that was actually in the last article. So yeah, the exact phrasing. But yeah, we're gonna just keep on going. Linden vertragen relativ viel Schatten. They tolerate relatively much shadow, you could say. Jedoch weniger als die Rotbuche. Though, jedoch, I'm not gonna go too deep into that. Doch means kind of yes, but the contrary yes, I don't know, like the countering yes, I hope you get what I mean. Weniger, so jedoch in this case means though. Weniger, less, als, than, die, Rotbuche, the, what was it, European beech, I think? Yeah, so linden trees tolerate relatively much shadow, though less than the European beech. Heute sind sie im Wald vielerorts rar geworden. Heute, nowadays, or today, nowadays, sind, are, sie, they, in dem, in the, forest, Wald means forest, vielerorts derives from the word viele. And it's also, this is kind of a older word. So, vielerorts, many, Ort derives from the word Ort, which should mean place, with a capital O, or location. So, vielerorts, I think you can probably already guess that this means in many places, basically, and it's kind of an older saying or word to say in many places. So, sind sie im Wald, in the forest, vielerorts, in many places or locations or whatever. Rar, which is probably an older word because as English derives from German, this was probably the older word, and this is what English still preserves in its language, whilst German has adapted a new word, which is selten. And in English it's rare, so this just means rare. Geworden, become, basically. Or has become, so this is the past, or also can be passive, but past form. So, and yeah, let's just translate that whole sentence. Heute sind sie im Wald vielerorts rar geworden. Today are they in the forest in many places. Rare, have become, basically. So they have become pretty rare in the forest in many places nowadays, or up to this day. Sie finden sich dafür aber umso häufiger in Parks oder Alleen. Sie, they, finden, find, sich, themselves, dafür, therefore, you could say, or you could also say kind of in contrary to that, but I'm just going to stick to therefore. But therefore is not the exact translation. Therefore is more like because of. Dafür is kind of more like and contrary to that, no, it's kind of on the other side, you could say. They find themselves, I don't know, let me just translate that whole section. Should translate the whole sentence. However, maybe. It's kind of more like however, so kind of similar to jedoch, which is here, used here. So it's kind of though. Sie finden sich dafür, so they find themselves, though you could say, or however. Aber, so this is also this aber from in contrary to. Though they find themselves in contrary to what was said before, basically. Umso häufiger, the umso can have various different meanings. I'm not going to dive into that, but in general it either means in terms of location, so around something, or it's a word that can be used in various relations to circumstances. Umso in this case means the more, so means je, it's kind of similar to je, so for each something, and so it means the more, so for each whatever, umso, for each so, the more, basically, they find themselves, therefore, though, the more, häufiger, this derives from the word, basically, very from the, what was this, like, very originally, it derives from the word Haufen, without the instead of an a, because I think almost every word that has these two dots on top, like not the word, but like a word with a vowel with these dots on top, originally didn't have it, and it's kind of a, you could say, bent form of that. So Haufen, which means a heap, a pile of something, and häufiger, this I think then derives from the word häufen, which is accumulate something, heap up, pile up, yeah. And or for example, sich häufen is in terms of circumstances or occurrences of something, die Zufälle häufen sich, for example. The coincidences are piling up. And häufiger, this derives from that. So häufig means basically a lot of occurrences, you could say. So the more, umso häufiger, the more, you could say, occurring. Häufig. I'm just gonna, there's an R missing. I don't know. More often, yeah. So the more often, häufig just in general means often, in parks, oder Alleen, or avenues, so the same as in here. They find themselves, though in contrary to what we said before, the more often in parks or avenues, basically. Probably it's gonna phrase that differently, something with however it was, I think. However, they are all the more frequently found in parks or avenues, so more advanced English, I guess. And than the way I phrased it, but yeah. Das Holz der Linde ist vor allem bei Kunsthandwerkern gefragt, da es sich exzellent zum Schnitzen oder Drechseln eignet. So, das Holz, the wood, der Linde, of the linden tree, ist vor allem, is for allem basically before all, so it means, what was I think above all, so it just means above all basically, so more than anything. Bei Kunsthandwerkern, Art Kunsthandwerkern, craftsmans, I guess, or something, or craftsmen. Man's of course not craftsmen. Or artisans. I think you can't hear it because of the microphone inputs, and it's a different input, but yeah, artisans, it said. And Kunsthandwerker, that's the rest of the word. Kunst, which means art, Hand, which means hand, Werkern, which means basically workers, someone who does something or creates something, because Werk means a work of art basically, or can also mean a workshop or a factory. We also had that, I think, in the last episode. And Kunsthandwerker, I think it's, artisan or craftsman or something. Let me just... So annoying. Craftsman. Yeah, Handwerker, or craftsman maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Handwerker is more of a, the guy that comes to repair your whatever washing machine, or comes to build your desk or do whatever in your house, like more in a repairing form or order, repairing manner than creating something with relating to art. So, Kunsthandwerkern, das Holz der Linde ist vor allem bei Kunsthandwerkern gefragt. The wood of the linden tree is above all art, or you could also kind of say by, but rather in most cases it's art. Kunsthandwerkern, so artisans, gefragt, ist gefragt. So, being asked, you could say, that we also have that, which I explained before, that geworden can also be passive, not like explicitly this form. I'm just saying that the form of ge is very much, it very much can be used either in passive form or in past form, like the second past form. Ist gefragt, or ist, or in this case sind geworden, ist gefragt. It's kind of, this in this case is passive. This is, I think, sind geworden. I don't exactly know which form this is, like grammatically speaking, and which name it has, but it's also kind of a past form. Sie sind, no. Yeah, it's a past form. I think the second past form or something. You can also look that up if you want to. I'm not gonna get too deep into the grammar because I'm not such a pro at that, and that's not kind of my field. So, das Holz der Linde ist vor allem bei Kunsthandwerkern gefragt. The wood of the linden tree is above all artisans being asked, you could say. So this is the passive form in this case, ist gefragt. And da es sich exzellent zum Schnitzen und Drechseln eignet. Da in general means there, because it's either I think, like, is it a preposition da? It should be a preposition, I think. I'm not too sure with the grammar stuff always, but like how to call it adverb, I don't know, da. Should be a preposition, kind of, because in normal cases it's either, like in English, above, under, da, I don't know, maybe it's more of an adverb, but it's locative adverb or something. So yeah, da, but in this case, da is not related to the locative whatevers, but rather to the because in this case here, for example. So it just translates to because. But for example, if I say da ist ein Reh something, then I say there is a deer, and here you have this da. So da, also you can see that, I think, where did we have it before? Here, dafür. It is also, in terms of its, I think in this case it's actually because of the locative, kind of, dafür. I mean, not locative, but like, because of the, it kind of, yeah. I'm just saying that it can be used, or is used in a lot of different circumstances because of its various meanings, not just locatively, like davor. But then it's kind of difficult because if I say davor, it can either relate to, I think it's rather the locative, but it can also be the cause for kind of thing, like the because, so it's kind of difficult to explain out, but I think it's rather in terms of the locative adverb saying davor, so therefore or because of therefore, I don't know. Anyways, so da, because it, sich, itself, excellently in English, because in English for verbs, of course, you always need that ly, or mostly, except for what's it called, for words that like fast, where you don't say fastly and all that stuff. Anyways, for the schnitzen, carving, und drechseln, and drechseln, I think it's the turning on this, I know what it's called in English, wood turning, yeah, of course, the turning on this, I think lathe it's called. I'm just gonna pull up a picture, wait, let me just, what's it called, Drechselbank or Drehbank, Drechselbank, of course, so wood lathe. So it looks like that usually, and yeah, you just have something, always turns out around, and it looks like that. I actually have one down in my basement, and it can be also kind of dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, but yeah, in general it's just for turning wood. And yeah, you can, for example, make handles of something, or I don't know, chess pieces, or you can also technically make spoons, even though you'd have to carve a lot more because it's flat on two sides, but yeah, or whatever. Or you can make food, basic kind of, that's a more general term, but like food containers in whatever form, like ice cups, is it like ice cups? I don't know, like, I think you get what I mean. Or any kind of bowls that are like around. Of course, bowls are round, but like any kind of containers that are round, basically. Yeah, and it looks like this usually. So, drechseln, and this is called drechseln in German. I know it's kind of maybe a more difficult word because of the CHS, but yeah, anyways, this is just what it means. So, das Holz der Linde, the wood of the Linde tree, is above all, at, you could say, artisans being asked, as, da, in this case, rather translates to as, it sich, itself, excellently for the carving and, or to the carving and wood turning, eignet. We also had that in some previous episode. It just, in this case, means to be, what's it called? I actually forgot. To be kind of made for it, you could say. To be suitable. So it suits as it's, yeah, for the, as it itself, excellently for the carving and wood turning suits, you could say. So, the wood of the Linde is asked above all in the artisan scene, you could say, as it suits excellently, or as it is like excellently suitable, you could say, for carving and wood turning. Es ist weich, it is soft. Weich means soft in general, I think. Lässt sich gut bearbeiten, lets itself well, in this case you would say. Bearbeiten, edit in general, but in this case it means to bearbeiten, like more rather in terms of arbeiten, because in general bearbeiten, it derives from the word Arbeit, which means work, so basically be worked on, or like literally with a be, but not be as sein in German, translated from the English be. This is just a prefix, but like be worked on. But in general, bearbeiten, it just means to edit something, like to change a bit of it, but in this case it really means kind of what it says, bearbeiten, like make work, like work on something, like really. So bearbeiten, added, yeah, process, yeah, or worked, handled, work on, yeah. So let's itself, well, be worked on, you could say. Und färben and dyed. Like, of course not dyed with the IE, but I think, is it called dyed? I'm not quite sure. Gefärbt, yeah, something like that. So it is soft. Let itself well be worked on and dyed, I think. Let me just translate the entire sentence. Curious how it was gonna say. Of course. It's soft, easy to work with and dye, yeah. So. Auch wenn diese Nutzungsmöglichkeiten mittlerweile eher Nischenbereiche sind, ist der Bedarf durchaus vorhanden. Auch wenn, even if, in general it means also when, but in this case it means even if, because when can also mean if. These Nutzungsmöglichkeiten, Nutzung means usage, because it derives from the word nutzen, which means use. So usage, Möglichkeiten. This derives from the word Möglichkeit, which means possibility. Or, for example, when you say, yeah, das ist möglich, you say that is possible. So, das ist möglich. Or just with a dot. That's possible. So, usage possibilities, basically. We also here have this N again. Mittlerweile. So, mittlerweile. How to explain that? Mittlerweile means basically by now. Mittlerweile, I don't know, Mitte, middle, mittler. In general, it maybe occurs in words like Vermittler, which is just two mediators. You can see this media, to kind of get to the middle, middle of two people so that they can kind of, agree, whatever. And mittlerweile, so derives from the word middle. Weile basically means while, not while as a conjunction in English, but while as a noun, so by now or something. And yeah. Auch wenn diese Nutzungsmöglichkeiten mittlerweile eher Nischenbereiche sind, even if those usage possibilities by now, basically, eher, rather, Nischenbereiche. So, Nische means, how do I say that? It's kind of a very, yeah, niche, of course. In English it's called niche also. And, Bereiche, which is the plural of Bereich, which means an area, basically. It's probably also want to say area. So a niche area. Sind, are, ist der Bedarf, is the Bedarf. Also, I think explained it in some previous episodes. This derives from the word dürfen, which means to be allowed to. Bedarf means what you kind of need or also request, you could say, in, for example, like company how to say that, company relations, but in general it means what you need, for example, or it's also Bedürfnis. I think that was actually the word that we translated in the previous episode, not the previous, but one of the previous ones, which means a need. So, yeah, rather need than a request maybe, but in this case it can also be a request. Ist der Bedarf, so is the, in this case it means request, durchaus vorhanden, throughout basically, but yeah, it can, in this case you could say throughout, but it's not really translating to what's wanting to express. It's, you'd say rather through and through, vorhanden, which means before, hand, basically means hand, but vorhanden, I mean, it's also a very visual word because it just means before or in front of your hands, so you can see it basically. So even if these usage possibilities by now rather niche areas are, is the need, you could say, or request through and through there, you could say. So even if these usage possibilities are rather niche areas by now, the need is very much there, you could say. Auch der Linde wird hinsichtlich der Anpassung an den Klimawandel eine bedeutende Rolle eingeräumt. To the, you could say, linden tree wird, is being, or will be, but in this case is being, hinsichtlich, which means, or it derives from the word hinsehen, look at something, basically to, especially like to intentionally look somewhere, hinsichtlich. So in regards to something, this means basically. So hinsichtlich der Anpassung, in regards to the Anpassung, this derives from the word anpassen, adjust. Hinsichtlich der Anpassung, the adjustment an den Klimawandel, to the climate, Wandel, derives from the word wandeln, or the other way around, but transform or to walk around. And for example, schlafwandeln is sleepwalking, even though in terms of walking you wouldn't really say wandeln, you would rather say wandern, but you don't say schlafwandern, you say schlafwandeln, because somebody is, I don't know, probably like kind of walking around like unconscious, so wandeln is more not so conscious, but can also, in terms of abstract things, rather mean, how to explain this, can slow change basically. Wandel is just, change. So climate change as the, or adjustment to the, rather, climate change, eine bedeutende Rolle eingeräumt, a bedeutende, basically it's kind of the same as bedeutungsvolle, which is a similar word, which means meaningful, where volle means full, voll means full, volle is just feminine form, so bedeutungsvoll. And Bedeutung means meaning, deuten means point to something, or to kind of, what was it again? To assume something means something, yeah. And Bedeutung in general means meaning, so bedeutend. So significant, you could say, but it's kind of similar. So a significant role, or of course in terms of just the abstract word of role, eingeräumt. So eingeräumt in general means, how to say that? This derives from the word Raum, of course, which means space or room. For example, my room, you could say not necessarily chamber, but just to get you the meaning, explain to you the meaning between, of course, Raum and like room and space, and chamber. Anyways, because like Raum in English translated can have different meanings, but Raum, eingeräumt. So this in general means, for example, if I have a drawer, ich habe meine Schublade, or ich habe die Sachen in meine Schublade eingeräumt. Schublade ein. I put the things away in my drawer, basically. Or, for example, Yeah, I mean, you would rather probably say, ich habe die Sachen in meine Schublade geräumt. I mean, not necessarily. I think you can say both, but in certain circumstances you would say eingeräumt rather and other geräumt, but in general it doesn't really make a difference. The only thing that can happen is that it might sound weird to native speakers, but in general, I don't know. You could probably always say any of the both. So, but in this case, eingeräumt, this has a different meaning. This has a more abstract meaning, which is einräumen in terms of admitting to something, you could say, or to giving space to something. For example, ich habe meinen Fehler eingeräumt is a very typical expression in, I don't know, like media articles. I don't know, for example, die Firma hat ihren Fehler eingeräumt. Yeah, so the company has admitted its mistake, or admitted to its mistake, I don't know. But yeah, Firma, of course, not Firma. So, eingeräumt, yeah. And this is what I was wanting to say, that in this case, auch der Linde wird hinsichtlich der Anpassung an den Klimawandel eine bedeutende Rolle eingeräumt. It just means to kind of admit to the fact that the linden tree has an important role, or to give space to it, basically, so that it can exist in there as an important role. So, also to the Linde is being in relation to the adjustment to the climate change, a meaningful or significant role being given, you could say, being emitted, I don't know. But so, in general, this means also to the Linde is being in relations to the climate change given a significant role, basically. Yeah, in relations to the adjustment to the climate change. So, sie sollte in keinem Wald fehlen und stets untergemischt werden. Sie sollte, she should, basically. So it's kind of a past form, but we mostly use it kind of as the what was it again? The conjunctive, I think. So yeah, I think it's the same in English, that in English the original form is sure, but nobody uses it as that. Everybody just uses should. But I don't know. I hope it's correct, but I think I heard that somewhere. So, sie sollte, but in German you could also say sie soll, so, but this is more, she should, if possible, like if best circumstances are there, you know. But what I'm just trying to say is that soll is, I think, more used in German than in English, the word sure, but yeah. So, she should, or it should, in keinem Wald, in no forest, fehlen, miss out, basically, or not be there, or miss, und stets, and steadily, basically, I think. Steadily is more in terms of an ongoing action. I mean, you could also say that, yeah, or always, evermore, untergemischt, undergemischt, undermixed, you could say. So, and always being mixed with, or being, I don't know, I'm just going to translate that. Being mixed, yeah, mixed in maybe. Werden, so be, so basically the passive form. Soll untergemischt werden, or sollte untergemischt werden. So she should miss in no forest and always be mixed in. Always, sounds kind of weird, I don't know. So, just gonna translate that. It should present in every forest and always mixed in. And always mixed in. Also be present in every forest and always mixed in, of course, yeah. So. Die Lindenblüten sind nicht nur Bestandteil von Erkältungstees, sondern auch eine wichtige Nektarquelle für Bienen und somit auch für die Basis für Lindenblütenhonig. Die Lindenblüten The linden tree, is it pollens? I'm not quite sure. It's something else, I would believe. Blossoms, of course, yeah. So the linden tree blossoms sind nicht, are not, nur, only, or just Bestandteil, so a part of, ingredient, das derives from the word stehen, which means to stand, stehen, and Bestandteil, this derives from the word bestehen then, which means to consist of something, yeah, or exist, and Bestandteil, so Stand is always kind of when you, I always say bends, but like when you conjugate, it's like when you make it to a noun, you always, I think, have to make it to stand, so kind of use a different form of a, I don't know, it's not like a rule, but when you speak the language, you just feel that it's kind of always that way. Von, so Bestandteil, what was it, ingredient, a consisting part, I don't know, component, of course. Von Erkältungstees, of Erkältungstees, this derives from the word kalt, very much, like originally, which means cold. And Erkältung means also cold, but in terms of a cold, so like you catch a cold and get sick. Erkältung just means cold. Tee, so Erkältungstee, so a tea of the cold or for the cold, or yeah. Sondern, but, also, auch, also, eine, a feminine form, wichtige feminine form, important, Nektarquelle, because Quelle is of course feminine, so every single adjective that relates to the noun and every single noun is always, if it's a composed noun made up of two components, always defined by the last word, which is kind of composed on. So Quelle, die Quelle, eine wichtige Nektarquelle, so a important nectar source, an important nectar source. Für, for Bienen, bees, und, and, somit, with that you could say, auch, also, die Basis, the base, für, for Lindenblütenhonig. So, linden tree honey, yeah. So, die Lindenblüten, the linden tree blossom honey, of course. So, the linden blossoms are not only a part of colds or teas against colds, I don't know, what's it again? Cold teas, interesting. Because cold teas, of course, has a different meaning too. But also an important nectar source for bees, and therefore also the base for linden tree blossom honey. Yeah, and that was it for today, actually. That was also a long article after the other we had last time. And yeah, as always, subscribe if you want to, like if you want to, comment something down below. If you want to change something, tell me something, whatever. And yeah, always stay respectful, be nice to everyone, and see you next time. Bye!